Sorry.
No, my
Turn
intent
that
is
way
to
down.
to give them a lengthy, I want to show that we have breadth and depth, both in education experience and history of the community. And so.
Okay, so that is recording, and then I will have this up here in case we want. I don't want to have to sign in. Don't make me.
Jennifer and Rick and Amy. Because Rick isn't coming.
Oh, I'm restarting this. All right. There's a lot of fun data in here, so I'm going to go through it all.
Yeah, I thought that we'd start off with Marissa's data because I thought that that might trigger information we want to change or include in the report. So we'll let Marissa start off with her data.
There's a lot of stuff here.
Realistically, Marissa, when do you think we can present this to City Council? I'm thinking it's not going to be before next year.
I talked to Eileen today, and that's probably true,
Yeah.
but she said that whenever we know for sure that we're ready to go, to let her know, and
Okay.
she will put it on the next one that's available.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that right before Christmas, if people are distracted.
Yeah, always. And then come the first of the year, they're distracted with their new e-readers and all that other stuff, so.
Hey.
Oh yeah, busy time.
Hi.
So I watched the video of Chris's resignation. So I mean, I get he's teaching an AP class. I get that his wife's in graduate school 3 nights a week, but you know, I didn't understand the whole comment about the social media stuff. Like, who's persecuting him on social media? And
I don't have a
Is that
Facebook, so
school?
I don't, yeah, I honestly don't know.
is that, you know?
It has, I read some of the comments deep into it and it sounded like it was teacher related rather than city council related, unless I read it wrong. Christy, did you have a
Yeah,
little
no,
of that
I
sense?
think that's exactly right.
People don't like his teaching, or
Yes. And what he might be teaching the topics.
well, he teaches government, doesn't
I think it's probably part of a larger conversation with librarians and teachers being, yeah, that's really sad.
he? Yeah, it really is.
Is that,
Well, I thought that the school board elections last May were much more positive.
Yeah.
Got rid of some of the, pardon my French.
do we know if Rick is coming?
No, Rick hasn't responded to anything I've sent to him,
Okay.
and I know that.
Well, let me know when you want me to start and I'll go.
Amy was having to rush here, so let's give her 5 more minutes.
Gotcha. Oh, that's right, yeah.
Right, she was having to rush from school.
That was.
So.
You can see the effect of the electronic materials printing.
Yeah, and I will tell you too, that top table, during the first 2 COVID years, so 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, there was no patron purge, which is something that we do every year where if nobody uses their card for 3 years, they get deleted from the system. A lot of those people, once that happens, end up coming back and getting a new card. But because of COVID, they didn't do that. So those numbers are higher when they probably wouldn't have been had we done the purge.
So Jennifer, this is a chamber question for you. 2 years before COVID, when Kyle was the chamber director, they started dropping off packets of, it can't be called welcome wagon because that's actually a trademark name, but packets to new homeowners, because we got packets from the library and packets from the Friends, the little, the 3-fold brochures to put in them. And then COVID happened. And that went away. Have they talked about doing anything similar to starting anything similar? We have all this building going on, and I don't know if people are getting information.
There's a whole, welcome to Canby packet that they do.
And
It's like,
is including the library and defense information?
I need to look at it.
Yeah.
I think they're just getting ready to publish too.
Hey, Amy. I think, since I haven't heard from Rick.
Yeah.
Oh, here he comes.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Everyone's gonna be here.
Yes.
Just not Luke and Chris. Great. Awesome.
Because that's just something that we,
I remember looking in there for the library and I thought I saw, I don't want to speak to it. I thought I saw the Friends of the Library, but
because I used to take over the things from the library as well as things from the Friends to the chamber offices. Hey, Rick, do you want to grab the door? Thanks. Yeah, I think it's too important to miss out on.
this was to homeowners or businesses.
I think that they were, I think they were getting a list of, because at the time Kyle's wife worked for a mortgage broker, so there's a list of all the new
Mhm.
whatever, and they were going and dropping them off at those addresses.
So there's a, from what I understand from the city, there's a list of the new home sales in the city, and then there's also a list of the new business license registrations. So there's two different lists that help identify who might be moving into the area or starting a business in the area. So I'll ask.
Yeah, if you could make sure that we get information. So Luke can't make it today, so I'm going to call the meeting to order, and this is a thank you card for Chris that I'm passing around, and my plan is just to mail it to the high school. Do you have a son in high school?
I do.
Well, then I'll give it to you to give to him.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's one of his favorite people.
Yeah,
And just so you know, this meeting is being recorded.
you have to be official.
Yeah.
So, Marissa brought a lot of data, and I thought that we should start with the data first to see if it determines anything we want to change on the report that I did.
All right, you
Marissa.
guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do my best to explain this. There's some things I'm gonna kind of go over a little more in depth and some things that we're just gonna kind of look over because it's not that important, but you can just have it. So this front page, that top table is the population that we are currently serving in the number of registered borrowers or people who have library cards. I was telling the group before a couple of you guys came in that the first two COVID years, so fiscal year 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021, there was no patron purge during those years. And a patron purge is essentially if library cards don't get used for 3 years, then they get deleted from the system. Some of those people come back and get library cards once they're purged. Other people probably moved away and just will never come back. So that 10,958 and the 9,624 number, that would probably be lower had we done the patron purge, but because of COVID, we gave everybody some, a grace period, essentially. And then that bottom table there, this just goes over the total number of physical item circulations that we had. So obviously anything except digital, just physical items. And you'll see that top number for the first fiscal year, 2018, 2019 was fairly high, and it started going down. Now it's going back up again, and we're kind of getting closer to that number. Although if you look at the next column, the number of circulations of our e-materials, that has gone up. There's been a significant jump even between the COVID years to now. And that stat is just for Canby patrons, not for link-wide, just Canby patrons.
And I think one of the things that's significant about that is that people don't have to come into the library to do
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
in a weird sort of way, you're looking at what the population interface with the library is.
Yes.
And how that's changing.
And a lot of people obviously were not able to come in during the COVID closures for a lot of the libraries. So we did see a good bump in usage because of that. So you'll see that final column, total circulation, we're getting back up to pre-COVID numbers for sure. All right, second page, this is a fun one. All right, so again, it's the same fiscal years that we're looking at. This just basically tells you about the number of staff that we have had throughout those fiscal years, the amount of city revenue we get, county revenue, district revenue, which is basically the same thing. And then total library revenue. So the thing that I want you to pay attention to on that first table is basically that 2023, 2024 fiscal year number right now. So we have 6.75 FTE technically, and that's down from 9.2 in some of the prior years. So that's a big deal. It's one of the reasons why I have been trying to, make it known that it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to expand our hours with this amount of staff. And I will tell you too, that we are down one vacant position, which is my position that we can't actually fill until, I'm saying until I'm permanent, which is just a hope, but so technically we would be a little bit higher, but at this exact moment, we have 6.75 FTE, which is a very big deal. And that's partially because, and I'll explain this later too, we're down one full-time bilingual librarian and 3 part-time pages. The page position here at the library does not exist anymore. And the 3 page positions that we had were each 15 hours each, and all 3 of them worked in the evening. So they were one of the main reasons why we were able to stay open until 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing to really keep in mind here. And I will tell you too, that that position was essentially gotten rid of because there was a proposal out there to get an AMH machine, which is a automated materials handling machine, which essentially means you can stick books in a slot and they'll get checked in right away and then go into their respective bins. That project didn't move forward, and so we lost the positions anyway, and so we're not going to get them back as far as I know. But that's one of the reasons why this hours conversation has been very difficult to have, just knowing what we're already up against. And then you'll see the tables below. That first table is just the amount of volunteers that we have and the amount of volunteer hours that are usually worked here. They help a lot with shelving, I will tell you that, and also pulling holds. The middle little table there, on-calls, we supplement a lot of our hours with on-call help. And which I think I might be able to show this to you later. It might be in a different table. But basically our budget for on-calls has continuously gone up every year. And that's because we keep losing staff.
Yeah.
So that's been very difficult to kind of deal with. And then I will show you that last table there, the seasonal staff. Last year, 3 library employees went on medical leave due to some of the things that were going on in the city and the library. And so 4 seasonal staff members were brought in about 2 weeks before the 3 staff members got back. And basically they worked about 1,918 hours, and a bunch of money had to go to paying them as well. That was a one-time expense, and at the same time, it is a sore subject.
Well, you can't look at the data holistically over a period of time, because that is such an anomaly that sticks up.
Yes,
You know.
yes. And with the seasonal staff that were brought in, our on-calls at the time were basically told for a period of 6 months that they were not going to have any hours. So we lost a lot of on-calls because of that as well. That was a really big deal, and it's still very much a sore spot. So yeah, that should not happen again. But I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. It's one of the reasons why we had to cut $20,000 of our collection budget last year to help, which is also a sore spot. Okay, so this next page here, this just basically goes over our open hours, how many hours were open, what days of the week, daytime versus evening hours, how many weeks the library was open, and so on and so forth. And then it also talks about total library visits, which I will tell you, those first two numbers, 132,000 and then the 98,000, it's likely that those numbers were inflated because the people counter, which is, it's a little thing above the door. Essentially, it was having some issues, which is why we did end up getting a new one called the footfall counter. But going back to that number, one of the reasons why we know it was kind of inflating data was because we looked at how many people were coming in at all hours of the day, and it said there were 30, 40 people coming in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., which was not true.
Well, I think at one time too, it was counting people when they came in
And when they
came
left,
out.
yeah. So that's a hard number to kind of look at, but I will tell you our new people counter, which is called a footfall counter, is very accurate from what I've been able to tell. So you can obviously see that even between 2021 and 2022 and the last fiscal year, there was a huge jump in the number of people that came in.
Yeah, I know that was the problem in 2018. because
Yes.
I was told that at the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had to put the data that we had,
Well,
but you know,
sure,
it's kind of hard to.
double count.
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting a lot more people in the doors, which is great. And I will definitely say Philip, our new children's librarian, has a huge part in that. He's bringing in a lot of people and just doing a fantastic job. So anyway, you'll just see the other notes. That very first fiscal year on top, that's when the bilingual librarian was removed. And then following that, we lost the pages and never got those back. So then if you look at the second table there, this goes over some of the things we do, like how many reference questions we get asked, how much meeting room usage we get. And I will tell you again, those first two numbers, that was also including library programs, and it shouldn't have. So the bottom two numbers don't include library programs in there. And you'll see those little red boxes, that's all children's. The green is young adult and the purple is adult. And then the blue is just kind of some other stuff like offsite programs, passive programs, virtual programs, which we did, you know, for a period of time during COVID. So really, this is some interesting information here. You know, we're doing a lot less programming, but we are getting more people in those programs, at least for the children's side and the adult side. And so one of the things that I did want to kind of make clear here is that back in those first two fiscal years, when we were doing a lot of programming, a lot of passive programming was included in that. So that's why the numbers might seem kind of big. And now with the state report, we actually have to divvy those out and say that this is passive programming, this is active programming.
So passive programming, Hannah would do like kits for adults.
Take and make kits.
Yeah, take and make
Yeah.
kits.
Or just things that you don't
Several.
need someone like presenting or anything like that. They can, like the craft that we do on Wednesdays, people can come do whatever they want and then leave.
Okay.
So those first two fiscal years, I will tell you that that was a very difficult time for staff, even though we did have more staff. Every single programmer was burned out. And so when Danny came in as our director, he saw that and really wanted to make sure that we were kind of focusing more on quality programming rather than quantity. And so that's kind of what we did. And then COVID just threw a wrench in everything and we had to figure out what to do then. So what we're doing right now with the staff size we have is much more sustainable. But at the same time, you know, we're all very aware that our shortened hours make it difficult to have programs in the evenings and to get more people in the door because of those programs and because of our hours.
So for those of you who weren't around or weren't paying attention because you didn't know, when the 3 teen suicides happened back before COVID, we added a lot. So, because I know I was the chair of the Friends of the Library at the time, and we increased our budget by almost 25% to pay for additional teen programs. And also the Library Foundation was doing a bunch of STEAM stuff in the big room next door. So all that stuff has gone away, you know, because we're not open in the evenings.
And it was well attended when it was happening.
I don't know about I know that
we had a core group of teens that were at every program and they would bring, you know, their friends in. And so it was pretty well attended, I would say, for the most part. But you know,
Different
all those
events,
kids are
but-
not teens anymore,
No.
and yeah, and COVID obviously really threw a wrench in a lot of the kids who were kind of going from that tween to teen age. And so I don't know really what happened there, but I know that also threw a wrench into our young adult programming planning.
So that, like, Luke is a great example of somebody who missed out completely on all the teen stuff, you know, because of COVID.
Yes,
So, I mean, it's not the city's fault, it's not the library's fault, it
Yeah.
happened.
Right.
But to me, it's unconscionable that we don't do more for teens in the evening in Canby.
yeah,
Well, it just feels like, yeah, like maybe more effort than should be put into redeveloping that. I realize not currently, but right, like that's just, we're setting up sort of these kids to not have a relationship with the library.
yes,
And then,
You probably saw by my notes that I
Yes.
feel very passionately about this.
yeah.
You know,
as you
because there was actually a lot of meetings about what to do for our teenagers, and Counselor Hensley was in a lot of those meetings, and she had a lot to say, and I have no qualms about calling her out on it, that she was very, very vocal about we need to do more for the teens in our community. And as in my report, I have no, like I said, I will call her out when I speak about the fact that, you know, we sat in the same meetings and I listened to her talk about this. And as the chair of the Friends, we went out and increased our budget by almost 25%, which is huge. When your budget's, you know, $18,000 a year and suddenly you come up with 22,000, that's a significant jump in what we were able to do, because we felt very, very strongly that we needed to have activities that drew teens in and a safe place for them to do it. And that's actually why, I don't know if you know that Irene told me some of this stuff. They had to reorganize some stuff because they had people kind of wandering back towards the teens who shouldn't be there and didn't have teenagers. And we took the safety of our teenagers, the security of it very, very seriously, you know, so.
yes, I do remember that.
And it gets me going, it gets me really hot under the collar.
Yeah, so essentially, you can see all the numbers there, but those last two columns, that first number on the left of the slash is the average number of patrons at programs, and then on the right-hand side, it's the percentage of attendance. So, you know, we have a higher percentage of people attending less programs, which is good sustainability-wise, but of course, we want to be doing more. It's really difficult with what we have going on. So I'll leave you guys to look at that some more later, but this very last page here is essentially comparing all of the libraries, the population, their hours, their latest hour, how many total open hours they have, how many staff they have, and then those last two columns is, the first one is ranking for most open hours to least, and then that last column is ranking from most staff to least. So what I essentially wanted to show you guys is that, you know, we are not open the least amount of hours, but we have the least amount of staff. And we're tied with the least amount of staff, although I will tell you right now with our one vacancy, we actually have the least amount of staff. So this is something really important to me. And I feel like, at least with some of the people that I've been showing this information to, they're starting to understand what I'm saying. You know, expanding hours is 100% what we all want to do, but with the least amount of staff out of all of the link libraries, that can't happen. And you have to remember too, like, because we got rid of the page position, which essentially was the position that did check-in, that did our courier and holds check-in, all of those duties got absorbed up to our library assistants. So not only do they have more to do,
They have to spend more time checking in books.
they have to spend more time doing jobs that originally were not for them to do.
And that is, even the business people should understand that.
Yeah.
Really poor business.
Yes.
When you take the most trained people you have and make them do the jobs that
Yes,
require the least training.
yes.
I'm looking at Happy Valley having 10 FTE.
Yeah, so
How does
if
that
you'll see
happen?
these two columns here, the percent of FTE and percent of part-time,
Yeah.
this was pulled from, it's a site called Newslink where we keep all the library's information. So as long as that was accurate at the time I was looking at it a couple days ago, that should be accurate. If you see it blank in any of those columns, it's because that library didn't have them separated out between full-time and part-time, so I just put the total staff. And then, of course, Sandy and Sandy Hoodland, they share staff, so that's something to keep in mind. And then Oak Lodge and Gladstone, they also share some staff, not all, but some.
It's so hard to compare everything.
It makes it almost impossible, but I did my best. So, yeah, this was just really what I wanted to show you guys. You know, we are one of, let's see, one of 3 libraries that's not open on Sunday. We are the library that opens the earliest, Monday through Thursday, but,
It seems like there could just be a shift because we have the earliest, latest hour.
mhm,
I think the dilemma that I see it is that our seniors and our parents with small children love the early hours, but it's at the sacrifice of, because people are here at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's busy at 9 o'clock in the morning. The day that I work, which is normally Thursdays, there's a lot of people in here at 9 o'clock in the morning. So there are people who really like the 9 a.m. time, but then we're forced to sacrifice the evening hours for teens and for working adults. And it's, I don't know what the solution is for that somebody's gonna have to take a hit.
Well, it looks like
Wait a
Gladstone,
minute, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's taking a hit. No other library opens at 9.
Yeah.
That means people would adjust. No other library does it at 9. I don't think it's gonna call it taking a hit.
I was wondering what kind of data do we have from the city, the library or the city, and all these studies we do over the years in census data, demographics, psychographics. That actually tells us within some kind of
Oh,
range. What is, my feeling is that we're a commuting town. People commute to other places to work, Portland, Salem. We're not like we were 30, 40 years ago. So that creates a whole different needs assessment in all services, just not the life, everything.
but we also have a population, a large population, when I see it, of
Yeah.
stay-at-home parents.
But to create some kind of either opinion or a process where you can say, okay, we need this because the data supports this. The data says, I don't pick a number, 40% of the people commute, 40%.
Therefore, they
Out of
need
town.
the evening hours and the Sunday
Because
hours. and
their
stuff like
needs,
that.
where do you put your needs? Do you put it where the most people, you know, the commuters need it? Do the seniors need it? Do the seniors have to get up at 8 or 9 in the morning? Can't they get here at 11? You know, what's the number? I know a lot of, I'm a senior. I know a lot of people that are up at 5 in the morning and they're retired. They start their day at 6:30, and as soon as it's dark, they're in bed. So
I know a lot of seniors like that too.
I don't know exactly where the town is. With statistics.
I don't know either. I honestly don't. And I will tell you that one of the reasons that we opened at 9 when we kind of reopened after the COVID closure was because a lot of people were asking us to have earlier hours. And I did also want to point out too, I've had conversations with several people about hours and going back and forth. So like Monday, Wednesday, we're open 10 to 8,
Yeah.
10 to 7, and Tuesday, Thursday, 9 to 6. So we hit everybody. And I've gotten some comments saying like, that's too confusing for people. We don't want to do that. And other libraries don't do that. But that was what I wanted to show you on here. A lot of libraries do that. So we could potentially shift our hours around to hit everyone.
We did that when I first moved to Canby.
Yeah.
We were open only 2 nights a week. And it was very confusing because I would come down to pick up books and I picked
On
the
the
wrong
wrong
day to come down,
Yeah.
you know, that type of thing. And I think that the general feeling was that that would be a step backwards. And to your point, Greg, this is one of the reasons why we needed to do a survey is because, you know, the last time Irene did a survey, all she did was survey people coming in the library. We need to survey the community because we won't know unless we
we need to find out why people aren't coming into the library.
Because
Right, we need to go to all
Well-
the people who are.
Because it's a broad-based thing, small business, how come people aren't, supporting small business? Well, small business either closed by the time they get home, or their schedule just doesn't permit it because they're doing sports or something. But you know what I'm saying, it's just that, it's not just, it's a system, it's a city issue, and we're just part of it.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that they do the first Thursdays, is because the small businesses stay open late that night to attract people downtown. I don't know how, I mean, we used to participate in that.
Right.
But the library did, the bookstore, the Friends Bookstore always had special sales that night and stuff like that, because it was a good way to get people in. Thrift, Cuthbert's always did something to, get people in and stuff like that, and, yeah, it's just like, they've started it again, first Thursday, but, I don't know what the percentage participation is.
I do.
You
I
do?
do, because
Right.
I've had a table for our business. So we're down from downtown.
Right.
So the first time I did it, I held it in our office and nobody showed up. So I took myself and a table downtown and I would be next to all the action. And I've done it for over a year now, and I would say they're getting about, so they do a scavenger hunt to
Oh.
encourage everyone to visit every business, and I would say the average has been 40, I mean, the winter when it's raining, I mean, they went year round, so there were some rough times out there, but in the summertime, it has been at least 60 people participating in the scavenger hunt. So that means like 80 or 90 or 100 people are just wandering the streets and visiting the various businesses. And you're absolutely right, they're encouraging awareness of what Canby has to offer in our own community for people.
Yeah,
Does the library attend that?
we used to before COVID when we were open in the evenings.
Philip and Terry have been partnering with the Book Nook and sharing a table with them.
Oh.
They actually have their store open and they started a game night
Yes.
on that night.
Yes,
Pretty exciting.
they're
They had
great.
an author run one night.
I love the Book Nook.
I think it's really troubling to me too that there's not a bilingual librarian in a town, city that it has lots of folks that speak Spanish.
That's another.
And
Another
Red
sore
button right
spot,
there.
yep.
yeah, and like, I mean, bilingual, I feel like is the bar, like bicultural would be
Better. but-
meaning a better, yeah.
but-
Cause that just feels like, I mean, even if we open hours or change hours, if folks aren't getting their needs met by folks that look and sound like them, like, are they gonna come here?
Yeah, that's my feeling for a lot of Spanish-speaking adults, that a lot of them speak very, very poor English. And if they come into the library, they have to come in with their child, and they have to have their child go up to an adult, and they stand there looking foolish because they're embarrassed by
It's gonna
their.
feel yucky.
And when Angelica was here, she just would, I witnessed a lot of conversations with Angelica and Spanish-speaking patrons, because there was an adult, they could have an adult to adult conversation versus having to put a child in the middle of it. And I think that's humiliating for people with language issues, to have to do that, to have to bring your child in so you can talk to.
Well, in this, I mean, again, like, I feel like in the interview process, right, like we talked about, like, the library being like a hub of like my childhood, and like how I can see that that could still be a thing for folks, right, like even older folks like me. But like if your hub or your library doesn't encourage, all folks, different folks, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's a place that you wanna go.
It doesn't feel
hang out.
safe.
Yeah. exactly.
Yeah, we don't have a
Welcoming.
Spanish speaker right now. Our last one was Lizzie and she
Went to Wilsonville.
had to leave.
Well, and that's gonna be really tough on you all, like staff. I mean, that's not fair to anybody in this.
I just don't think that we're getting the Hispanic patrons.
Left here to go to another library?
Yes.
Yeah.
I,
That.
It was a
that is
management
Something
issue.
we need to address, or?
She's really happy.
we
in her
lost,
new role.
yeah, we lost several staff members because of what was going on here. Which I would be happy to explain that to you.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. It was, yeah, we lost a lot of really good staff members and we're still kind of reeling from it.
And then
But
on top of losing staff members, we lost our on-call workers because they were basically told, go away, we don't want you.
so we're hiring for on-calls again right now. We're actually looking at applications. So like, we're looking forward to that. But at the same time, like using on-calls
Right.
to supplement is not sustainable and not really a good look either.
I'm looking at total library revenue. And we're up almost. And almost 500,000. And that would seem that we could afford the staff we need if we didn't have to spend the money on on-calls. So why are we not going out for another position?
Part of that is because if we end up getting, let's say, another part-time position, then if someone is out sick, we don't have anyone to fill in, period. And there are definitely periods of time where we have several staff members out, sickness, family, whatever.
Vacation, whatever. yeah.
Plus, we also, one of the reasons that we have on-calls is like, for example, Saturday, we don't have enough staff for Saturday. We also want to cover during the week. So we have to schedule on-calls consistently for that day. Also for like holidays, people wanting to take time off.
I think that the model of the library makes sense to have, but prior to them being told to go away, I mean, we knew a lot of the on-call people, they worked here regularly. You know, we got to know them, patrons got to know them because they were here, some of the Saturday people were here almost every Saturday, so you got to know people. So it felt like even though they were technically on call, they felt that they were part of the staff,
Yes.
you know?
So how much budget would we have to raise in order to add a position?
Honestly, I could not tell you right now. I don't know, but you have to keep in mind too that benefits are also included in here.
Yeah, I
So this, you know,
understand
this 1.1 FTE that,
We ought to be able to get that.
That's what we
information from
need,
the
yes,
personnel
yes.
person. I mean, what we need is, we have a personnel problem.
yes,
You know, which is a financial problem. So
yes.
I think what we desperately need to know is how much more money do we have to have in order to have the staff we need?
Mhm.
It's clear that we don't have enough staff and that, I mean, just this 53,000 that we spend on seasonal workers is pretty clear evidence that we're spending money, and you know, we're spending money that could be used for the position.
Except you're concerned that we will still need this potentially.
Well, we still need.
Yes,
somebody
I'm
on
saying
call, so-
that we are already operating at less than what we need. We need another full-time position, possibly more, and this as well.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Yes.
To make
yeah,
sure staff can
sure.
still take off
Sure.
time and all that.
Sure.
Not
So,
to derail all of that, but another area that we really are low, which manifests itself into many other places, is the volunteer number and the volunteer hours. And when volunteers come into work, they naturally check out items. They bring their family, they bring awareness to the programs, and it doesn't cost. And it just makes the library more wholesome. I understand though you have to manage the volunteers.
yeah, that's
However,
one of
it's
my many
That's
hats.
what it is.
significant, the decrease in volunteers and
Right
volunteer
now,
hours.
right now, and I can explain that part of it. So right now with volunteers, I just have a wait list because I don't have the time to bring on more people. Plus some of them need to be background checked, which also takes time and also takes money. And so right now I had to basically cap it at this because I couldn't manage them all. I couldn't train them all. And we had a lot of mistakes happening. Which meant that a lot of staff was spending time fixing those mistakes because I just didn't have the time to properly train them. So, I mean, you know, it's hard for me to talk about all of these things because it makes me feel like we're not doing a good job. But at the same time, just the sheer amount of hats that all of us are wearing is incredibly overwhelming. And I would love to do more with everything. I just don't know how.
We're your family.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
None of
It's all
us,
good.
none of us feel that you're not doing your job
Thank you.
well.
No,
Please know that, and I speak for all of us, I think, we want to find a way to help you. And
Yeah. It's
Thank
like,
you for saying that.
it's like having a new baby. you know,
Yeah,
If you don't sleep.
Yeah.
There is no way one human being can do this, and it's hard. The good news with the baby is it grows up. And this isn't gonna grow up, so at some point, it feels really important to me that we figure out which end of the dog we need to grab in order to start making some progress.
so where's the money we need?
Yeah.
How much do we need? Where do we go?
Well,
And how do
and
we
this
force
is my
them to give
question
it
to
to
the
us?
group. In the past, except for the 1 year when they did the huge, that Roger Reed did that huge presentation, most of the presentations, we were strongly encouraged to make our presentations very high level. That's for the 1 year that Roger Reed did that huge presentation when they asked the city to start chipping in some money. So do we just do a high level presentation that would lead to a more detailed discussion with Marissa about how did we get to this situation? It's kind of like, and this is with Chris leaving, we don't have a city council member to kind of bounce these ideas off of. Or do we want to get in with some really hard hitting data? You know,
That's where I wanna be.
Well, we have to support the library and the community. And I would say that it is very apparent just from the outside, because I don't know the inner details. I had no idea about the volunteers. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
if
no,
I
no.
triggered you.
No,
I'm
it's,
sorry.
it's okay.
But, Chris resigned. The library director resigned. Chris told us in a public meeting that there was a problem with staffing, that they were bringing in a firm to look into it. So it seems like, morale and staffing, aside from the budget part of it, is in critical mode right now. So how do we go forward and say, if we want this much money and we want it to be allocated towards staffing and support, is that to get the hours longer or whatever we decide?
Right.
Is that practical in the climate that the city overall and the library are in right now?
well, I did have a meeting with Eileen a few months back about, is after the meeting where Chris basically kind of beat us up very nicely. And her advice to me was to take the tactic of the library is not meeting the needs of the residents of Canby. So that, and everything I wrote was with that overarching, trying to show the library's not meeting the
Word
needs.
that very differently, because that makes it sound like it's the library's fault.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, so I
don't know
that
how
was
to
just
word
my,
it, but-
I don't think I
okay.
have said that in here once, I think, but you're right, we need to change that, but it's just like but at the same time, and Rick is right too, we don't have the data, and I did point that out in my report. We were told by Danny that we would be able to do a survey, so we would have hard data. No, and Eileen has basically said, there ain't gonna be a survey, there's no money for it, so it was like, oh, well. So I pointed that out in here, we were told we could do a survey, so that we would understand what the needs, now, so everything else is just hearsay from what we're hearing from people, from being in the city council meeting in the summertime and watching people come to the front door to find out that the library was closed. It's, I tend to err on the side of not hitting people, not hitting city council members in public with a whole lot of data, but rather to say, so our job is to represent the residents of Canby to the city council. And our representation is that there's a problem, and not to sit there and hit them with a lot of, and I did tell this to Marissa when we were talking about data, is that I think that my goal is that this would then cause the city council to have a discussion about, let's dive into the data, which then puts Marissa on the spot. So I did warn her that I think that would be kind of the next step, is that they need to look at the data. But I'm not sure that hitting them in public with a lot of hard data is a smart move. That's just my 2 cents worth.
I think without funding the council terminal, we can point out to them that we have had an enormous number of longtime staff, people who knew the situation, and knew how to do the job. A lot.
It was a
You are-
very traumatic year. I
You
will
and
tell you
Karen
that.
are the survivors, as near as I can tell. But that creates tremendous stress. In addition to volunteers, volunteer hours being down.
Because there's nobody to manage them.
Yes.
Managing volunteers is
And-
time consuming.
And because those volunteers went away because of COVID. So, okay, so we have a creating a lot of staff because we just don't have our stress because we don't have enough staff.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really make any difference what the statistics show. The flat fact is we're gonna burn out the people we have here if we don't do something about this and do it pretty soon.
There's the quantitative and there's the qualitative.
And-
There's the
and-
story that, not
Exactly.
everyone is
And-
aware of that.
And
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
I think
very
that
important.
needs to be told and needs to be made clear to people. And the council, I'm sure they know it, but I'm sure they don't want it said publicly.
You talked about the councils going through a lot. Is it financially related or is it, anybody know?
It
Is-
is,
If it's financial, we're choosing our time poorly.
right, there's just been a lot of overturn everywhere. City administration, library, other city departments,
We got
council.
meetings tonight.
Yeah, so there's just essentially a lot going on in general. And I can't speak to a lot of the council stuff, but some of the stuff was tied together and all, from the same cause and other things. I think there might be other things going on that I'm not aware of, but
And so for those who came in later, I mean, realistically, we're not gonna be able to make this presentation until the new year. I mean, there's just, it takes too long to get on the schedule. My goal is to get them looking at the budget early in the year because the fiscal year starts in July. So that gives them 6 months to prepare for a change in budget. I don't think that we would see any changes before July of next year. I think that's-
Okay, so we're doing the groundwork for next
Yes.
July.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what that's kind of my thinking is realistically, that's probably the best that we can hope for.
yeah,
And I-
everything is always for the next budget year. A lot of decisions for the following budget year have to be made between October and December.
Yeah.
Some can be made a little bit later, but
Yeah.
The thing, I think ultimately, we really would save money if we spent money to hire more staff, to hire full-time staff, to hire people who could come in and learn their job and, where the learning curve wouldn't be too high.
Mhm.
I can see places in the budget where you're gonna save money then. And things will start calming down. But in order to do that, we're gonna have to spend some money. So what we need to start thinking about, I think, is how much do we have to hire the people we need in order to make this, stop the bleeding.
yeah. And then
We-
also
we
make
can
sure.
We can keep on like we
Right,
are.
right.
And drive off everybody else who's here. I mean, you can't make people work 24-hour days. Even you. I
Yeah.
mean, we just can't, that's not sustainable. What we're doing is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's been the hardest part about kind of me being actually asking to be put in this position.
Yeah.
It's been trying to help staff through what happened and also trying to find a way forward while also getting, outside pressure to do more with what we have. And it's just really hard
Well,
right
you
now.
guys are the recipients of bad decisions that you didn't anticipate. So.
And, I can say as an HR person, one of the number one causes of turnover is bad management, and it has a long-term impact. It's like it hits the ripple in the pond from throwing one stone, one bad manager, and the ripples can be felt for quite some time afterwards, And we've seen a lot of ripples, and it'd be nice to stop them. Amy.
Well, that July date just feels like we're gonna do a lot of bleeding until then. That's a lot of money that has to go to seasonal and on-call employees. It would be more financially productive if we could move this through as quickly as possible. And maybe we need to come at them with, we should have this many employees. We need to get it up to right off the bat, there's a vacancy that needs to be filled immediately. And that should be budgeted for.
9.2.
It is budgeted for, but because I'm interim, they want to figure out whoever's gonna be permanent before they can actually fill that position. So essentially, I have to do
She has to do 2 jobs until she
3
hires.
jobs. I'm also a collection development librarian.
It
I
must
have
be a
to-
government employee thing because.
It is. It is.
Well,
It's
so if you don't get the position, you have a place.
I
to go
have a
back
job to
to.
go back to, yes,
I support
precisely.
that.
Yeah.
So is there a process for
So-
that? I mean, you're,
So.
they just say it's yours?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, but because we're in the process of hiring a new city administrator, they wanted to leave that choice to whoever they end up hiring, which very well could be Eileen. But with that being said, last year, they reclassified Lizzie's supervisor position as an operations manager, and then, so that job essentially was basically supposed to take on my duties. And so if/when I'm made permanent, in January, we want to reclassify my supervisor position since we already have an operations manager, and doesn't make any sense as a collection development librarian to take basically all of the collections that I'm in charge of, which is 2 very large ones, and also be a volunteer coordinator.
Yes.
So that would be their 2 main roles, taking both of those off my plate.
I don't know if this is a dumb question, but the total paid staff,
Mhm.
number 9.2, is that FTE or is that? real people?
That's 9.2 in FTE
An
equivalent.
FTE equivalent.
Yes.
So,
So that's not all full-time.
yeah, so,
That's just,
so what we have to do is get 6.75 FTE up to 9.2. I mean,
yes,
we're
yes.
not any less. than
Essentially,
that.
yes,
That's what we
yes.
have to go from. We have to
Yes.
go from 6 point.
Yes, because we were able to be open the 10 to 8 Monday through Thursday and also Sunday hours with that many staff and on calls.
And actually
The two together.
9.3 because we had 9.03. That's where we have to get.
So it seems like, given that basically there's an open position, can't you use some of the funds from that to hire some more on-call right now?
Basically, we are trying to have,
Okay.
get more on-call in here. The problem right now is because we lost our on-calls that were the most available, they're not available.
Plus.
That's the thing,
somebody
is
has
ripple
to-
effects from every decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody has to manage people who come in
Yeah.
part-time.
Yeah.
That's-
We had 2 people call it yesterday and not one on-call was available. Like, that's just an everyday thing right now, which is why we're hiring them.
So it sounds like our task is to figure out how much we need
Yeah.
dollar wise.
Yeah, yeah.
What we're gonna get for that, how it's going to help the library and help the community and present it in that fashion.
Yeah.
This is what we need, this is what this will get us to equal.
Yeah.
And then we should ask for more than getting to level.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
But then
Absolutely.
if we could present it in a way,
If we had 3.25 additional, whatever it costs to get another 3.25 FTE.
that
I
this
don't
is
know what that costs.
where, right?
I mean, I can certainly ask. I will
Yeah,
tell
I
you
mean,
too that
they-
this
they can
is,
tell us something personnel.
right.
What that would cost.
This
So,
is
yeah,
coming
that's-
after a working session, I think it was a little over a month ago, maybe 2 months now, where a presentation on the city of Canby's finances was made. And I will tell you that this is gonna be a hard conversation to have after that presentation. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're in really bad dire straits, but it was more like we need to not hire right now, that kind of thing. So at the same time, I think it's just important to really sell the fact that we can't do what the community needs us
Yes.
to do.
Yes, that's,
The way things are.
so I was at a Halloween party with Jason Patton, and he strongly recommended that we not. Because, did you read the article about we need a new city water treatment thing?
Plant.
Yeah, that's gonna be in the millions and millions of dollars. And he also suggested that we take it from this perspective, that the library needs to be able to do more in order to, give the citizens of Canby. He said going in and asking for money right now will be not a wise decision. So, and that's basically what Eileen told me too, is that, you want to make your presentation about the residents, not, as opposed to the money perspective. So it's like, and this is why I wanted Marissa to bring up data, because I'm just one voice. So I think the group has to decide what kind of a tactic we want to take with the presentation to the city.
I continue to think they really need to have this kind of information given to them. We don't have to ask for the money, but we need to say, here's
Yeah.
here's the
Yeah.
situation we're in.
Mhm.
We're trying to do 2018's job
Right.
with
half of what we
with
have.
half of what we had in 2018.
And it's important to note too that everything price wise is going up.
Everything has gone up.
Physical is going up. They're starting to charge us for shipping costs from different warehouses. We recently, we agreed for next fiscal year to boost the e-content budget for each library by
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's-
it really feels like an impossible place to be in right now, but we all want to make it work. So we're doing what we can. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to be as transparent as I can so you guys understand what's been whirling around in
this
my
is
head.
really- This is really helpful.
Just a lot of information from all over the place. But yeah, I think that's really the key, is just, we are not meeting the community's needs staffing wise and hours wise.
Look at the city revenue. They are giving so much more than they ever have.
Yes, because when we first moved here, the city wasn't giving the library anything
City wasn't supporting the library.
at all.
So are they going to be like, you've got enough? Is there another place we can go? Could we ask the district for more?
Well, I asked Marissa about that, and she said that.
This is the thing right now, that all the libraries, because a lot of us are in the same kind of situation, they're talking about setting up a new district so we can get more money. But again, that could take years. That could be a decade.
Yes.
Who knows?
And we need a city manager to basically, if somebody's gonna go to Link and say Canby needs a higher percentage, because it's only 4.something% right now, we need a city manager. And there is no city manager right now.
A lot of the city managers are saying, not right now. That's what they're all saying right now, which I understand. We're all trying to figure out what to do right now, but
When the swimming pool needs to do something, they have a levy, right? And it's voted on. Is that an option?
basically what we've been told is to research any and all funding streams, potential funding streams. So
Besides that,
Because right now, we're all levied, but it goes to Link.
Yeah.
We are paying on our property taxes, money that goes to Link.
people would not be pleased with that.
One of the things a survey would do for us, I think, is that Oregon City collects the revenue for a great bit of the area that we actually serve. And I don't feel hopeful that that'll ever change. We went around and around and around and around
What do you
years
mean?
ago. Well, Oregon City, if you look at the, just look at the amount of revenue for Oregon City. Maybe it's not on.
It's not on
Yes,
top.
it's not a different thing. In any case, Oregon City gets credit.
So-
And Wilsonville
Because of the way the
has
property
all
lines.
Charbonneau goes to
Yeah,
Wilsonville.
so essentially there are a lot of
Charbonneau is on our
patrons.
side of the river. and
Yeah.
People from Charbonneau
Yes.
certainly come here to go to the library.
There are people that live in Oregon City, but they come here because we're the closest library.
Yeah.
Well, like Susie lived in an area where the kids go to school, can't be schools,
Mhm.
but their taxes go to Oregon City.
It's like the Karis area or something.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
strange.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so the big push that Irene was trying to do several years ago was to get the library district
Boundaries changed.
to match up with the school district. Because if your kid is going to Canby schools, chances are you're gonna be coming into Canby as opposed to going to Oregon. So she wanted to try to get them to match up. And I think some of the kids that live near Charbonneau, their kids, some of them come here, don't get the library district to match up, and we would get additional tax revenue that way. And that was the thing that whatever his name was. So he told us we weren't allowed to even discuss that, the idea of changing it.
And you have to keep in mind, this is why a lot of the city managers don't want to touch it, and I understand, is if you move this line, all the other libraries are saying, well, let's move this line, let's move this
Yeah,
line, so
yeah.
we could end up losing.
Yeah.
That's the tricky issue.
Yeah.
So it's like, that could work, but it also could take away from us
In any case.
in other
that-
areas.
That's part of the problem with the district.
Yes.
The
Yes.
city gets a tremendous amount more money.
Yeah.
Anybody
And
else.
the tax rate for the Link District essentially is the lowest in the greater Portland metro. So, we've had a lot of patrons say, well, why aren't you guys fine free? And it's like, you guys are already paying much less than other counties. So at the same time, even though Multnomah County and Washington County are fine free, they are actually paying more in taxes for that.
Yeah.
So we have, yeah,
Did we talk about that we were going fine for
We went
recently?
to 10 cents.
yeah, it went from 25 cents a day per item to
Oh,
10
okay.
cents. And there's a conversation right now about auto renewals, but again, any decision that impacts budget has to be okayed by every single library. And so there are some libraries, that at that bank on getting that money. So that's another tricky piece of the puzzle. Yeah, it's a lot of being the middleman.
Yeah, it's just so like this balancing act that like you can't really talk about what's really happening because then you're kind of afraid of what consequences, unintended or not.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that like I don't want to tiptoe around the city council. Like I feel like they're like, don't talk to us about this because of that. And it's like, but this is happening now.
Yeah, I understand it from this perspective, is that, we're supposed to give input, but we're not supposed to tell them what to do. So that's because we're an advisory board, we're not a board that makes decisions, we're this advisory board. So our job is to advise. And
That does change it.
it does, because we're not the kind of a board that comes in and, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna tell you what we're gonna do, that's, so it's a matter of presenting it in such a way that they want to take our advice, and that's what I'm struggling with.
I'm curious, I don't know if there are libraries that operate without an advisory board and how their staff funding problems get solved. It seems like I'm looking at what the objectives of the library board are, and it's one piece of it, and obviously it's critically important to get the library up to staff levels that are maintainable, sustainable. And then we're trying to say, well, we want to grow, and we want to, and I love your reports. I absolutely love your data. The one thing I would love to know, and it's not your task.
Oh, I can do it.
But, well, I don't know, because I'm going beyond the library now,
Okay.
but we're looking at the population served on the very first page on the first block. I wanna know how many residents are in Canby in comparison to that also.
I have that on here somewhere, actually. So, yeah, it's the very, very last page, that second column, that's the actual population of the time this was pulled.
But that's the population of the city, not necessarily of the library district. And that's what
Correct.
we haven't been able to find.
Right,
Correct.
and that's what I'm interested in.
Yes.
So our library district has been growing or shrinking, contracting along with the registered borrowers and the circulation. And so there's, I mean, I know the school district used to actually contract and they'd have less kids and they'd have to cut staff. And sometimes they would expand and they'd have more kids and they'd add staff. And I was just curious how that all interplays with this, but I also feel like without our guidance, does this council or the city have a responsibility to the staffing independent of us?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Like, is it, like, when we look at the priorities that we have, obviously this is mission critical, it sounds like it's mission critical. But if we're gonna be in this funding, staffing problem for a while, for whatever reason we have it and we're going to continue to have it, how are we ever gonna get to all these other things too? So I'm just curious, like, the draft, we're actually going for extended hours, but the conversation is gonna be hard to get there.
Do you remember at the last meeting that I gave you guys that little handout? Look at that, that basically compared some of the other libraries in Link with how much city revenue they get.
Oh,
So it
yes.
shows the amount that we get from the city as opposed to other libraries. And I could look beyond that too and look at other libraries just in Oregon. But you know, it's all over the place. Some cities get a good chunk of money, or some libraries get a chunk of money from their cities and others don't get much at all, if any. So that would also be something to look at. I could certainly pull stats from other similar sized libraries in Oregon and show you how much city
Yeah.
revenue they get. I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Our police have the best cars and the newest cars.
Well,
Oh, that's the one, yeah.
yes, this, you know, realistically, when you look at it, I mean, like Oswego has the best tax base, of course, in
In Link, right.
Oh, yeah.
Wilsonville probably second. And that 14% was hard earned. I have to tell you, that was really hard earned years ago.
Well, and Lake Oswego hit #1 on her most staff report.
Yes, and they're not open the most hours, which you would think would be different, but at the same time, I recently talked to the Lake Oswego director. She's wonderful and super kind. She is very aware of the fact that, you know, her staff are not overextended. They have the time to really put on these incredible programs and put up these wonderful displays and make their collection what it should be. And that's something that we just haven't really had the opportunity to do. Not that we don't want to, we just haven't been able to. Yeah.
Their latest time is 7 PM.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
That's your bedtime, that's fine.
I think it's the, if you wanted to do some of the, like, Karen used to have Dungeons and Dragons tournaments, and those
sure.
last
It restarted Saturdays.
Good,
Saturdays, but they used to be in the evenings when, you know,
yeah.
by the time the kids have dinner and get here, there wasn't enough time to, I don't even know what Dungeons and Dragons is, but I know that it's big.
No, it takes time.
It's a game that takes a long time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
every time and a lot of preparation too. So, yeah.
I don't want to keep people too much longer. I realize other people have commitments. We never, so we have to rethink this. So we'll basically make this a focus of the meeting the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Well, yeah,
Because we've got to, we've got to present something early in the year if we want to get it on the budget thing. And the other thing, so do we go online to figure out when the budget committee meetings are? I mean, I have a hard time with the city's website, so.
Yeah, it would be, if you type in City of Canby meetings, the first page that'll pop up, it will show you all the meetings when they are, the agenda that you can download, and it usually